Miss Edie, welcome to the podcast. I know this has been a little bit of time in the making, so I'm excited we're finally here. Thanks for joining us today.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And so I figured we would start off today with you kind of just giving the audience a little bit of a background as far as like, what did life look like for little Miss Edie as you grew up as a little kid and you're running around, and kind of what was your life like?
Well, it was actually very curious because we came from a very humble beginning with my family. Without going into my family history, but my parents were immigrants to Canada. They were refugees as well during all the different things that were happening in our country, Hungary. So they came to Canada to get established. So my father came to this country at 32, and then he was really fortunate to just land this job because of his machinery and knowledge. He ended up working for this incredibly powerful, big investor here in the city of Toronto. And he took a liking to my dad because he saw his potential. So he gave him some other jobs, and then it led us to where I grew up, which was a beautiful farm, and we were caretakers of his big property, and they had many beautiful facilities. And so I kind of grew up like a little princess, which was kind of fun. I didn't even know. I didn't understand. You're just a child, and you have like 4 pools and all this other stuff around you, and you live on a farm. And yeah, it was very fortunate. So I don't know what I did in a past one, but I definitely got blessed in the beginning. But it was fantastic. So I grew up with 2 entrepreneur parents. So that already shifted my mindset in life.
Right.
My mother was working for a doctor's office, but then became a medical billing agent. So I watched her go to college late. I watched him invest in contracts and start himself out like that. And so I grew up in a very there's no word like can't doesn't exist, not finding a way isn't a thing. So there was a lot of things eliminated early on, even though life's challenges. So when I went to school, that's when I first experienced bullying, because not only was I, my family raised me traditional. I learned Hungarian from the moment I was born. I didn't learn English or French till I was 6. So I actually learned it at school and just on TV and through our neighbors' kids. They were really nice and took a liking to me. So I learned a little bit through that. But they were adamant about me learning French because, of course, Canada's bilingual.
Right.
And then, so I was learning both of them at the same time, which, kids are mean. So I seemed very slow to a lot of people. Meanwhile, now it took until I was like 28 to realize I was learning 3 languages at the same time. Well, they were trying to figure out 1 and 2. So that's okay. Yeah. And just other things. I guess I was very curious. I loved machinery, of course, growing up on it. I was supposed to be a boy. It came out a girl. So I don't know what happened there. But my dad, didn't treat me different. He taught me everything. I was operating and driving cars by 8, farm life, a little different than normal standards. And it was really cool. Even with our crew, he got big contracts for snow removal and just excavating and landscaping. So he was really adamant about reinvesting things. So I was watching us go from living in a trailer, the size of our now dining room table, just to put it into context, to really having this incredible journey in life through hardship and everything. And he was, whatever you want to do. And they were older. They had us later. So that kind of gave all those trial and error periods that maybe younger parents are going through. They went through a lot of it, but they had each other. So I think the standard of the power couple was preset with my family, and just seeing that. And then my beautiful brother was my first manifestation. I came home first day of school on my birthday, of course, beautiful Labor Day birthdays. And I wanted a baby brother. And 9 months later, I got him. So he was my first proof that I'm a master manifester.
I love that. that. So I'm curious for you then, as you grew up with parents that were so like entrepreneurial, the word can't doesn't exist, all these things, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Like, were you like, when I grow up, I want to be just like my parents and I want to own a business? Or like, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do growing up?
Yes. I had a few traumatic life experiences happen early on, and I wanted to get into the justice system. And so it had really nothing to do with entrepreneur, but it was just more like not being limited by being a woman. At the time, I wanted to be in the RCMP. That was my goal, to be a Royal Canadian Mounted Police Officer. I was just really good at figuring things out, and that was kind of a little knack. And then I ended up always getting into these leadership programs. I don't know why they picked me. I don't know what the criteria were, but when I was 12, I was sent to a leadership camp. And then in grade 10, they selected me to be supported. Like they offered the program, and I was the only person in the entire school that took advantage of it. I also know financially my parents were able to support it, and the
Right.
school split it with them. So that was a very profound experience because I got to spend a week in Ottawa where the capital with the RCMP was, and I got to spend time and like see the horses and learn everything. And as soon as I got like to the counterfeiting classes, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And so it was really intense and it was really good. And at the time I was studying martial arts, so my fitness was in a great state too. And I was
Yeah.
just really working hard. And then my height was a factor because you couldn't be 5'8" and I was 5'4". And I'm like, well, I'm not there yet, so we'll see. Maybe things will change.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a pilot. Like there was just so many things that I think my creative energy just flows everywhere. And then it was just kind of like, okay, that couldn't happen now, that couldn't happen then for whatever
Right.
reason. But it wasn't ever like a no, it was just a not yet. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that was a critical language adjustment. And I think being supported, like even if you don't have the support, like I don't know how to say it. I didn't feel understood a lot of my childhood. Also went through some situations that really caused a lot of hardship, and experiencing that when you have a child mind, you don't understand things. Like all of a
Right.
sudden, why is this happening, how is this happening? So there's a lot of fear and a lot of other things that introduced where you don't grow up thinking about those things, but you got to worry, okay, if I go to school, are they going to hurt me, are they not? So
Yeah.
they were quite brutal. So I was really bullied for being overweight, I was bullied for being foreign, a lot of different things. And they even wrote a hate poem for me to not be here anymore. And these are kids and they don't realize
Yeah.
how
Kids are
powerful
cruel
that is.
sometimes.
Very cruel. And later in university, because I took criminology because my parents were very supportive on me doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
And as much as I wanted to take over the company and take mechanic school and learn how to do
Yeah.
all those things that my dad does, because I saw the potential, I saw the money, I saw the growth, the expansion, and then we're taking over this district, we're taking over that district. So it was a phenomenal witnessing experience. Like they're my two greatest role models because at that time that's all I knew.
Right.
But it was such a blessing to be raised under them. There was many difficulties because of course they're working all the time. And then I ended up taking care of a lot of my brother, and just it was us a lot of the time. And then when I went to university, it's a little harder to explain to people the sacrifices of an entrepreneur life. But then here we are having all these things and now able to be together. Financially, it was a challenge many times because, as you know, too, when you take big investments, they're big
Yeah.
stakes that you're putting
Right.
into situations. And so there was a lot of sleepless nights. There was a lot of loss. A lot of our family, everyone in our family battled cancer. And so when I was in my second year university, I was diagnosed with cancer as well. And it was a shock.
Yeah.
They gave me 2 months to live 12 years ago. So the reason why I say that is because I refused. I was very fortunate with the location because they could just remove the area and then I'd be fine. So I didn't, like Tony Robbins always says, the butcher wants to cut and the doctor wants to
Yeah.
medicate.
What
And I
what
was
kind of cancer was it? Because I
I had
I also had
cervical.
cancer.
Yes, you're right. I saw
And it
that. So
was
congratulations, survivor.
yeah, and it was very similar where it was like rather than doing the chemo and all that, it was like
Yeah.
the way I had it, chemo wouldn't react to it. So it was just
Yeah.
let's just pull it out of you and surgically remove it. So it sounds like it was the same for you.
Very similar. Yeah, 6 years of a lot of treatment.
Yeah.
But congratulations for you too, because,
Yeah, you too.
we have a lot of people who are not as fortunate as us. And for all of them, at the same time I was diagnosed, my niece was diagnosed with brain cancer, and we did lose her after 8 years of battling. So it was just so much guilt that I carried from that too. And you understand, like when you're put into that position, as grateful as you are, like for some reason I had survivor's guilt even with that, because
Hmm.
so many people weren't. And then there's stuff even recently, but there's just
What
a
was
lot of
what was the biggest lesson you got? Because, for me, one of the things as I went through cancer, it was the biggest thing that got me through it, I think, was saying everything happens for a reason, for the right
yes,
reason at the right time. And it was like, I don't know why this happens, but I know I have a purpose in the world and this isn't the end. So this is just
yeah.
part of my story. And that was like something that got me through. But I'm curious for you, like, what was it that helped you get through that? And then ultimately, were there any like, I don't know, things today that were silver lining that you apply to your life and something you took away from it?
I think, well, that was exactly what I said too, was everything happens for a reason. And I think that really, I looked at it and I removed myself from it and I said, they don't know me. And that was something that fired me because it was my second year university. I'm halfway to my degree. I was taking summer school so I could finish earlier. I was super keener in school. Like, I don't know, not like the nerdy one, you wouldn't know, but I am. And I just wanted to get everything finished faster because I had huge goals. I wanted to get my master's and continue to the next university program. But I thought about it, and even the doctor, the advice that I got was horrendous. So please, triple, quadruple. I think it took 22 doctors till I finally found a clinic that wasn't willing to remove everything. So that's a lot of no's. That's a lot of rejection. That's a lot of fighting for my life. And at a young age, when people are worried about which bar they're going to go to or which thing they're going to go to or what are we going to do tonight? It's, whatever events happening on campus. That was my a big moment. And the main thing too was the support, because I don't think I told my family for like 6 months, to be honest. We were not necessarily in a good place because they were dealing with a lot. They were traveling and working, and it's the selfish part, I guess, that was just not wanting to interrupt. And then at the same time with my niece, of course, the priority went there. So it was a very big secret. When I did tell them, of course, they were quite supportive, but I wasn't sure. And I was dating someone at the time. And I remember I broke up with him. I was like, I don't want him to feel like he's the one dating the sick girl. Because at that time, you don't know. And you're young. And I was just less people you want to hurt just in case. And she told me, she's like, the doctor said, buy a ticket and go travel Europe for 2 years or 2 months, see how far you get. And I was like, this is medical advice right now. And for someone who doesn't know otherwise, they would have listened. And even now, I mean, thank God, like miracles happen. And like Steve Jobs says, the dots connect backwards. Through other traumatic experiences, I started to have cell rejuvenation, which means that it's starting to grow back. So I went from never having kids to now possibly having kids, which I know is a little TMI, but for people who this is a serious decision as a woman, like that's your purpose. That's your, you're coming here to create. I always wanted a family. I always wanted to have those things for myself and to, like procreation, right? Like that's the life. And I saw my family and I was like, I want to have a family young. And then that was taken away from me. So so I felt anyway at the time, because you have different, like, why is this happening to me? You go through all those things, but then
totally.
But then I was like, I believe very firmly in my faith. And of course, I'd never push that on anyone, but I always felt like we all have our own crosses to carry and you're never given more than you can handle. And he creates, God creates his greatest warriors through the toughest battles. And you're the only one who can fight that. And to be one of his warriors and understanding that, like, okay, this is an obstacle, we're going to overcome it. It could have been anything else and it wasn't. So that's sort of where my health changed, my attitude changed. I know I was a little bit more reckless after that because then I wasn't considering, future plans, and I did deal with it in my own ways. At some point, I did travel for years because I could. I worked really, really hard. And that was sort of, the cancer itself was a very surreal experience. And because it was an inner, like, how it is too, if people can't see your scars, right? So they don't see anything wrong with you. They don't think anything's happening with you. And I'm not the kind of person, like, I'd like to put my strength forward because I don't feel like me going around crying on everybody is really going to help. I mean, I did in the past year because there's a lot of stuff going on. Scare off a lot of people when you're emotional, you know that? But at the time, I was really, really burying a lot. And everyone in my family passed away from cancer, grandparents, uncles, everyone. So it was a very common thing in my life. So it was almost like, once you get it, you're going to die. That was what I saw. That's what I knew. And at that time, I was the only survivor. And just a cute little thing with the last point I'd like to say, because both my parents have been battling for the past 2 years. And at the same time, they're so romantic. They do everything together. But this was an excruciatingly challenging year for all of us, especially with COVID and everything going on. And then watching them. And, at one point, like, I remember just looking at my dad and just telling him, like, I did it, you can do it, because I learned it from you. And just seeing that moment where you get to kind of give it back.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the
And
most beautiful things I think as well, is it's being able to share the message with others of like, hey, if you're going through something challenging like this, like cancer, like one of the craziest things people ever face in their life, and you're able to share with people that they can get through it too. It's one of the most just
yeah,
amazing things. And that being your
and
parents is, I mean, I can't even imagine. That's
yeah,
truly a beautiful thing that you've taken from that. And
thank
I
you.
guess I'm curious then. So now today you're 12 years clear, which God bless. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad to hear that, and congrats.
Thank you.
Um, and so I'm curious then, like, the journey of your life kind of, as I was doing research on you, took an interesting turn. And I'm curious to see where this came, because you're going to school, you're going for criminology, you graduate, you get criminology and justice law, and you are going down this path. And then I'm curious for you, at what point did that shift into what you're doing today? Because what you're doing today is extraordinarily different than criminology and justice law. So walk us through this transition.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, I agree. I had, well, it was a few series of events. At the same time that I was going to university, my family's business was really taking off. So, what had initially started out as my journey into becoming an RCMP officer, I graduated at Carleton, and then I went to University of Toronto to get their specialist forensic program. And at the time, it was like a 4-year, 2-year immerse, because a lot of my credits overlapped. And then I would do 2 years for a master's, and then I would be super qualified to then go and do the degree of detective work that I wanted to do in that industry. And not to catch the bad guys, but yeah, I've got some talents. So I thought that
Nice.
that's where I wanted to apply my hunger for justice, my hunger for the victims, for the situations that I wish I had someone like me fighting for.
Yeah.
And for all the victims who have been through unbelievable experiences, and to get those answers, because you become the voice for the lost ones. And that was something that I just felt always was something that was calling me. And I lost a lot of people really early on, friends, and I don't know what we can talk about, because I know this is going on the air, but there's just a lot of loss and really tragic situations that I feel like could have been avoided if people were paying attention. And so this was something that I was hyper aware of, and it was very active in my life, and I kept seeing it. And for some reason, it was being put in front of me. So I continued. Then my second year at University of Toronto, they pulled the program, because there's 3,000 graduates that year and only one job in Canada. So they canceled the program. And then at the same time, my father was going through a major heart procedure. So he had to step down and we had to step up. So I stepped into the company and became more active. I was already, when I could, through school, but of course, school was always the priority. And I became more of a managerial, more of an operations, doing everything. I mean, we were very hands-on in the summer. We would do road repairs. In the winter, we would do snow removal. Like, there was constant activity. Yeah. And they were big contracts for a long time.
What did that moment of decision look like for you? Like, I'm curious if we could go into your head at that moment, because, like, again, we're both fans of Tony Robbins. He says, in your moments of decision, your destiny is shaped. And it's like, in that moment, your entire plan for your life ripped out from under you. At the same time, your family's going, hey, we need you to step up. It's like, you could have gone so many different directions, but I'm curious, what was going through your head that said, all right, I'm stepping into the family. Is this something I'm going to do forever? Is this something I'm going to be temporarily? Like, what was going through your head? Because I'm sure there's people listening to this that maybe have something, maybe not as extreme or maybe as extreme, but something happening where it's like, wow, this shift in my life happened that I did not, this is not part of my plan. Like, the things that I wrote out did not go the way, and I got to make a decision now. And it's like, do I do this? Do I do that? And it's like, it can kind of tug at you from the inside. So what was it like for you on the inside of your head, and kind of how'd you make the decision?
It was excruciating. It was every part of the future dream being torn away, and you just feeling like you're reaching out for something that is never going to happen. at the time, it was also an emotional thing because it's my father and he was going through a major procedure, which was already a high risk. So now you got to tough up, you got to step up, you got to step in, you got to do all these things. So there was also no time to think, which maybe some of you can relate to, because sometimes like that's the whole you get in your head, you're dead thing. And it's so true because I know I was broken, I was devastated. I'll be very, very honest with you. It was traumatic. It was disappointing. I wasn't oh yeah, that hit something. I was losing myself. I lost my identity. I lost what I was creating for myself. And then it felt like all those years, all those tears, all those hard work. And as students, you know how hard you work. And a lot of people don't give credit to the energy, especially when you're really trying to build something and you're really trying to learn and you're really trying to pour your heart and soul into becoming this person, especially when you have something to prove. And then at the time too, it was also a lot of money. So this was a no-brainer decision also, because as much as like I had to put that on hold, then, okay, they changed the program. That's not possible. Now I have to choose a different route anyway. So was this really a big catastrophe, or was this divine intervention and redirection? And so as that happened, amen. Oh, I wholeheartedly, I don't, everything that happens, he has a hand in it. That's why I just started to follow the string that's pulling me. And that was kind of the biggest lesson, that if your heart is pulling you in one direction, you know, sometimes you have to bless and release and understand that there's something better coming, because he never takes anything away that isn't meant for you. And if it was meant for you, it wouldn't be an obstacle. It would be a part of your journey. It would be a part of it. Like it might be a stepping stone, but it's not going to knock you off. And so I kind of felt like, okay, that door got slammed. So where's he taking me? Let's keep going down the hallway through door A. So then we ended up here, and then running the company, running the stuff. And then I still needed something to identify myself. So I got into Mary Kay because after all the hormonal treatments from the procedures, because of course it was all my hormones, because of the feminine reproductive system, right? That was influenced for me. So it caused a lot of hormonal imbalances. And again, the trauma of the procedures, because any operation is still, you know, it's not fun. And so going through all that really took a number on my face. I was like, I never had acne. And then, 20 something. And it was just like, I looked like a teenager and it was horribly embarrassing. So I'm trying to be like the face of our company. I'm trying to do this. I'm showing up to meetings and they look at me like I look like a 14-year-old. So I'm like, I need to not look like this. So I got into Mary Kay. So that was my first foot into network marketing, into the industry of direct sales. And I loved it. And I accelerated. So I was doing that at the same time, because we got to be stubborn. Us folk, we don't focus on one thing at a time. We want it all. I poured into it and I gave it my whole heart and soul. And for 5 years in a row, I was amongst the top 20 sales for Canada. And so the Queen of Courts. I got a couple diamond rings to prove it. So it was really fun. I had a wait list for my classes. I have clients even now that are recognizing me on YouTube. Like, weren't you the Mary Kay girl? I'm like, that was awesome. Me. So it's funny how everything comes full circle. But I think like I was still forging, as much as like I felt like my father's legacy was the company, but there was still a part of me that knew that this wasn't for me. Like it is for me, because of course your parents always say they do everything for you, but the actual Edith, like what defines Edie? Like what is me? What am I leaving? What am I doing? So I kept going, and then, I like this because this made me money, that made me money. And then it was all these passive incomes. And at one point, I think I had like 6 businesses going at the same time. And I was just, whatever it was that made money, I signed up for it. But it was also the good feeling that, like, I mean, keep in mind, I was working like 100-hour weeks. There, like 80 was minimum. So this wasn't for the weak. This wasn't for the ones that complain. Like this was you went. But I was fired up. I was forced to. I was angry. I couldn't control things. Of course, gotta let go of control issues. Let God drive the cart. But I couldn't help with my dad's recovery. I couldn't help with other things. And everyone's focused around all. At that time, it was very scary. We thought we were going to lose him several times. So there was a lot of emotions and a lot of human experience that was real and raw. And I was still trying to do all these things. And now I see it was all just preparation. So now that I'm here, I learned a lot, of course, from all aspects, from the financial side, from the team building side, from the, customer service. Like even just the way I always operated was, how would I want to be treated? what is it that I want? And it's less about what you can do for me and how can I be of service. And that was something where all of the things that I've done were all service oriented businesses.
Right.
And then I went through a really terrible attack with I got mauled by my cat almost to death, which is a terrifying story that I haven't actually talked about publicly. But
Goodness.
I was torn to shred, and it was right before I started an incredible travel club. And I was supposed to leave like 2 days later, and I couldn't do anything. My arms, like it was like when I came out, the neighbors heard me. When I came out, they thought someone attacked me with a knife because I was just so cut up. And it was a devastating thing. It was my therapy animal from the last thing. So my whole faith, my trust, my love, my heart, my hope, my everything was just ripped from me, literally. And I got out of there, had to go get taken care of, and I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't do anything for myself. It was the most useless and the most debilitated and the most in pain I've ever been. And everyone came through. My family, my father was spoon feeding me at 28, like it was embarrassing, but it was also because for me, my pride.
Yeah. But, like, Dad, no, I got it.
Yeah. So it was a whole thing, and then recovering. And then I had actually, when I was actually going to Texas for that event, it was a huge event for World Ventures at the time. It was my first event with them. And I absolutely loved it. That company saved my life. I'm proud that I worked so hard that I had the money to actually enjoy the products, to actually travel and experience it. And I met incredible people all around the world with it. So I went to the first event, and that's when I got introduced to personal development on that scale. And that saved my life. Mark Aceta was the incredible trainer, and many of them as well, because even Johnny Wimbry was someone who really influenced me from there. And we actually wrote a book. I'm in a book featured with him too. So that's really fun. And then and Mark Aceta's events, he did all these really deep things. Now I know everyone's like, go to therapy, go to everything. And of course, I'm not a doctor, so please do. But whenever I did, I made the therapist cry. And I didn't know, it wasn't on purpose. It was my pain. Right. And it was real, and it was triggering for others. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe God gave it to me because other people can't handle it either. So I shut up. I shut down and I hid it. And when after, like when I went on that trip, I actually had to have a friend pack my suitcase. She drove me to the airport, found someone to carry my bags, and my other friend met me there, and she picked me up and took all, like, it was the most beautiful experience to see how loved we are. Like I'd never had that my whole life. I never had people that would drive just to the airport to carry my suitcase because they knew what I went through. And I was at a Walmart there. We were getting snacks in the break, and this woman came up because of course I've got all these wounds all over. And I was like, oh my God, people are going to think I cut myself because they look like scars, and they were still very fresh. And this woman came up to me right as I was cashing out. So I had my hand on the cash register paying, and she put her hand on my arm and she said, God loves you. And I started crying. I just like, it was sort of that whole, like the messages, the signs, the synchronicities, the messages coming through, the people you're surrounded with. And I was like, the most broken I'd ever been, the most hollow. And if you've ever been empty and hollow, you know exactly what I mean. Where someone could throw a coin in you and it's just bouncing around because there was nothing left. I was dust inside. And that's where I felt that I had to be completely submitted, completely surrendered, completely any knowledge of any understanding I had of things we loved, of possessions, of meanings and all that stuff. It was just completely being redefined. So I had a fresh slate. And when that message came through to me, I took it as a huge, loud and clear sign. I got it. and really participated in my rescue. And that was the most critical step for me. And then I just decided, like, you don't have to do things alone. You don't have to hide. You don't have to do this. And I mean, I was still going through my trauma from that because I suffered major PTSD for years, even sometimes still get triggered. And it can just be the simplest sound, I mean, it happened to me when I was at the gym and all someone did was walk behind me. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And when people don't understand how powerful mental health is and how powerful the battles, and I think that's what made me so sensitive to others, because I knew what was going on with me inside. And by being vulnerable and honest with myself, respectfully, I like to think I'm quite considerate of other people. And I feel
Yeah.
like I had to learn all these things: grief, loss, devastation, embarrassment. I mean, we lost a lot of stuff too. As successful as things were, there was big risks that did not
Right.
pan out. So, I mean, we're not going into the dark valleys, but there were a lot of trenches that we had to crawl our way out of. And I think that, going from the travel club, going to another club, and then working on all these different things and meeting the people, I just kept feeling like I was surrounded by better and better and better. And then I realized that that was a reflection of me. I was doing the work to be in those environments. I was doing the work to be in the presence of greatness, to be in the presence of legends, to be speaking to a fellow survivor as well, because
Yeah.
these are major things. And of course, it's an honor to be on this with you, because I love what you're doing. And we've somehow navigated our way through all this life. And I truly believe that every step leads you to where you are right now. And I even say that on my lives, like everything you did and everything I did led us to this exact moment right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Like, how blessed is the divine design? And just to have that synergy, to have that awareness that, yeah, there is something bigger. And of course, you don't have to believe in faith. I say it like God can be whoever it means to anyone hearing this, but to believe that there's something greater, whether it's the universe, and to utilize those laws. What you give out does come back. What you do will be reciprocated, good or bad. And I think that, that mindset that I had too is that everything bad keeps happening to me. Well, what did I invite? What did I allow? And that included relationships, that included friendships, that included drama, that included whatever. And then I became aware of the cultivations I was cultivating
Right.
and what I was planting. And then I was like, okay, we're going to work up this field. I was a farmer girl, right? Work up this
Yeah.
field and cultivate some new beginnings. And what is the craziest thing you could imagine yourself? And then sit down and doodle it and draw it, and then manifest it, visualize it. And even actually, it was yesterday, 2 years ago, I spoke on stage in Ireland for the first time in front of 5,000 people, almost 5,000 people. And that opportunity happened in 5 days. And we just mentioned it before, and they called me, and I'm in Canada, and they're like, are you coming to the event this weekend in Ireland? Because we'd like you to speak on stage about your volunteer work. And of course, within a heartbeat. And I feel like coming from criminology to pouring myself in. And I think like where I kind of missed a step here, so I'll fill you in. With World Ventures, they had a beautiful foundation that did volunteer work around the world. And I was building schools in Guatemala. I built 3. I've also been on 2 tours and led my own tour as a leader. I restored orphanages in Hungary, my home country, as well as Czech Republic through this organization. And then I also had the opportunity to participate in almost like 32 other, because every city we went to for events, we did a volunteer day to give back. And it was so in alignment with me of being in service. And it brought a fulfillment that I had never had, because it really gave me a genuine example. I mean, my father helped everybody he could. If they asked him for anything, he would help them out in whatever way he was able to, of course. And I saw the impact he made. And these are people who need it desperately. And when I did it myself, that's when I realized that, God uses us to answer other people's prayers too, the same way that people come back and help us. And when he was diagnosed 2 years ago, I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I had 6 months of travels and events and volunteer things that I had planned. And I was like, what do I do? This was another big decision moment. I was like, do I cancel my commitments because now I'm stepping into a leadership role in all these positions? Do I cancel that and stay here, but I'm useless here? What am I going to do? Cry over him and be sad and bring that energy? And my mom's here, my brother's here. We had a genuine, serious family meeting. And I told them that, listen, my impact is what I can do there. And I know that the good I'm going to go do there will be rewarded by the way that God finds it to us. And I knew that by going and doing those things in those countries, by doing those intentions, and to be honest, like I have to be honest with you, Stu, even in Guatemala, we had a beautiful prayer circle where everyone partook. Every trip I did, they prayed with me. They supported me through my breakdowns. Like I'm even getting emotional now because the humanity that I have found in this world, the love, the caring, and the pure hearts that hold you when you really need it, you need that contrast to not be appreciated in order to just cherish those seconds,
Yeah.
because they fleet. But if it wasn't for those genuine moments where we prayed together and we held each other and we supported, and they shared their stories and I shared my stories, and then he ended up with the best surgeon. He, thank God, knock on wood, he ended up with the best doctors. He ended up with the most incredible recovery, and the radiation took and everything helped.
Yeah.
And then he pulled through, and that was
Yeah.
also all him. He takes all that credit for that. And then my mom being diagnosed, and was like, okay, here's round two. It
Yeah.
was just
So
like, now it's easy to talk about. But
yeah. So let me ask you this then, because I mean the adventure you've had in sort of figuring out your life has been tremendous, of like all the different things you've done, the different things you've experienced. I'm curious, was there a moment where you went, because everything you're doing now with live readings and astrology and tarot and all of that world, was there a moment where you went, because from my perspective, it feels like that was finally maybe one of the things that was like, this is where my heart is.
yeah.
And when was that moment of like light bulb went on, this is it?
Well, that's a perfect question, because I think there's such a negative connotation with the industry, right? It's depending on your religious belief, depending on whatever, and that's sort of what I bring to it different. Because I would listen to readers. Now, of course, I stumbled on free readings on YouTube because I wanted to
Yeah.
go and help get guidance. Like I just needed someone to tell me it was going to be okay. I just needed someone to tell me I was doing it right. I was just some kind of guidance, and then I had one of my other mother, I call her my other mother,
Yeah.
Marty. She bought me my first tarot deck 10 years ago. It's gonna be over 10 years now. And I remember being scared of the cards. How funny is
Yeah.
that? Because I was just like, oh no, this is bad, I'm not supposed to, my dad doesn't like it, and then that was also cultural, very negative, Catholic also, so that's a very, don't
Yeah.
go there. But I decided to explore it. And then I decided to learn from it. And then I started watching other readers, and nothing against other readers, because everyone's an artist in their creation. But I had seen some that were very teaching negative things, or really focusing or fixated on the negative drama or the circumstances. And I was like, well, I don't agree with that. Like, I don't accept that message, or, like that's where you need to use your discernment, because you have free will with any information. Same with what works for you might not work for me, and what works for me
Right.
might not work for the viewer. And it's just sort of learning how to navigate, because that's how you're going to accept or deny information in your life. And then so I was like, I could, I started doing it and playing with my, getting my own deck. I got oracle cards, which are beautiful divine messages. I have angel cards, like all
Yeah.
these incredible, like the attention. There's Bible cards. There's so much, like, just to open the world to awareness of the different types. Like, you have motivation cards. I mean, I just designed my first deck as well,
Yeah.
an oracle card. So there's a
Well,
lot of stuff
and
that,
one thing that I feel that was happening in this too, that I kind of want to touch on, is as you like got your first deck, as you got your second deck, as you started to dive into this, it sounds like that string that was pulling you forward, or the energy that was calling you, was like, it was, yeah, it was getting bigger and bigger, and just more confirmation of like, yes, 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 go
yeah,
deeper, go deeper, go deeper. Right.
absolutely,
And,
absolutely. And sorry.
yeah, and I just think it's beautiful. Like, for anybody that's exploring their life, it's like, listen to that inner pull of like, as you try something, or get a first deck, or whatever it is that you're currently going through in your life, listen to that energy of, am I getting yes, 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 do this more, I'm enjoying this, or the opposite. So I just want to touch on that. So I'm curious then, for
Definitely.
you, has it been then, I mean, several years that you've been doing this? Because I know recently you kind of went into Tony Robbins' world, and you said, full on doing the YouTube channel, like going just more public about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I came out about tarot.
Yeah. So cool.
But
And so what was that like for you then, is going like, you know what, I've been doing this, I've been kind of been dabbling, and now like, this is me, and I'm telling the world.
yeah, that's pretty much exactly what it was, because I was doing it secretly for years. I would say
Yeah.
probably over 5 years that I really got obsessed about it. I started, oh, I like this one, I like that one, and then I started collecting them. And then I was using it for my mental health, just to guide me in situations, just to give me daily messages, just to
Yeah.
help me through this. And I know they say don't read for yourself, but I wasn't doing tarot readings, I was giving myself guidance on decisions and learning my intuition, because that's kind of where the cards themselves are just a divining tool. It's the energy, because like each card has 1,000 meanings. It depends on the context, it depends on the neighbor, it depends on what's going on around it and all of that. But not to get into the techniques of it, but there was a lot of moments where I met someone and I would just pull out the cards and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, if you'd want, I'd read for you." Or they'd ask and I'd read for them. And I was helping so many people for years. And everyone was like, "You're so good at this." And they'd get goosebumps. I'd get goosebumps. And I was just like, okay, that's just another affirmation, another confirmation, another proof that it's something that's right for me. And I never, ever said anything to people that I myself wasn't doing or didn't believe. And that was sort of where, even putting a positive twist on things, I want to help people focus on the best outcomes for themselves, because we are creating the best versions of ourselves every day. And I don't like to focus, like, yes, bad things happen. They do. They have to. You need contrast, right? That's what Tony Robbins always talks about. And then I was hearing it from so many people. You got to do this. You got to do this. You should do this on YouTube. You should do it there. So God was telling me through everybody, and then I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And then the other company I was going from was going through a very difficult time. So that kind of went down, which was devastating. So I needed to recreate that path on that journey. Was now the bubble was popping there too. So, okay, that dream's, so that was kind of in alignment. And then I treated myself to go to my first UPW in Singapore to see Tony Robbins. I wanted to walk on fire. I knew if I could walk on fire, nothing can stop me. And I was right. So I think that at that event, I was crying. I remember I did a live even from there on my birthday, thanking everyone. And I was in tears about how proud I was for investing into myself. And I have to be honest, confession time, in the past, I would say 4 years, I've probably spent $120,000 on personal investment. So into like my personal development, I should say.
Right.
And these are events, these are tours, these are programs, these are Tony Robbins events, these are Bob Proctor events, like learning from the greatest, even Earl Nightingale, and listening. Like YouTube has all these free resources. And like, if you're watching something silly, you could also be watching something that's going to really educate you. And I feel like thinking that you're done school when you're done school is your first mistake.
You're always learning.
Because I've spent so much. Exactly. And then going to that event was where I broke free. I unleashed the Titan. I didn't want to be down anymore. And I realized that the one person that was really rattling my own cage was me. So like they say, I give you permission to step out of your way and to become who you're here to be. And the best part is you're always finding it out every second of every day. So this is even now until this bubble pops, right? So that's sort of where you keep going. And then let us hear, and, talking about tarot and astrology, like, sometimes it blows my mind because like you said, weren't you supposed to be in the RCMP? Now you're doing tarot online, like everyone.
And it's such the like beautiful part about life is, it's like you have the direction you want to go, but you never know when life's going to tug you this way or that way. It's like someone and I were talking the other day about how you have to know what you want in life, but know it and have this sort of just beautiful flexibility to like knowing what you want, but being flexible that at any moment life can go, hey, do this or try this, or just go do that one random thing. And it may pull you in an entirely different direction. So it's kind of that beautiful mix. And so I'm curious, Miss Edie, I mean, I know you're up to so much in the world and on YouTube, TikTok, kind of all over now. I'm curious if people want to get more info on you, see what you're up to. I know you do a lot. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Perfect. Well, thank you. You can find me on my website, missedietarot.com. I made a whole page just dedicated to all the different services I offer. I also now do corporate events. So if you guys want to host anything with your boss or business, you can recommend me there too. Using all sorts of tools and awareness. I'm trying to teach people how to manifest, how to heal, how to use their positive energy, and just putting it out there for good. So you can find me TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the links. I do have a link tree as well. It's Miss Edie 1. So you can find me, and I think anything you need is there. And
we'll put it all in the show notes.
Perfect. Well. Yeah. So that'll be there. And then just anything, right? Like even just someone to talk to, like jump on my lives. Maybe you might get a free card reading. Like I do
Yeah.
giveaways and I give back, and I'll be opening my own foundation soon too. So I'm really excited about that, to
Love
give
that.
back.
So the last question I have for you, and this is something we ask all of our guests because we want to help people find direction, but we want to do it through action, right? Not just sitting there, but like actively pursuing creating a life that we love. And so I would be curious, what would you say is one thing someone listening to this can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
Breathe. Take a big breath in and a big breath out.
Hmm.
And really realize and think, what is on your mind right now? Is that really going to matter in 5 years? Is that person worth you throwing away the rest of your life? Is this situation truly the obstacle that you might feel it is right now? The quickest way to take action is to step back. And I learned this in the Tony Robbins event. We joked about taking a step back, but it's because you're springing into action the second you leap forward. And it's more of a, when you're about to line up an arrow, you got to pull it back to get that tension and that resistance.
Yeah.
And I feel like when there is an obstacle before you, or whatever, big or small, what someone said no, or you got rejected, like rejection isn't always in work and business. They didn't answer your call, or just the
Yeah.
person you love doesn't feel the same way. It's okay, because you have to understand that what is meant for you will always be for you. And if you are trying to figure out what your next step is, sit down with a pen and paper. Be like that little inner child and honor yourself. And if you got to doodle it, you got to write it out, you got to draw it out, whatever it might be. What is the one thing you've always wanted to do? And then you kind of navigate from there, and no matter how wild it is, no matter how out there it is, and no matter how scary it is. This was terrifying for me to step into this
Yeah.
public position. Mostly because of the fear of judgment. I come from a very judgmental community, and that was the biggest thing, is what are they going to think about me? Eliminate that.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Who cares? If they are saying stuff about you, it's because you're doing something right anyway.
Yeah. I
So
love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on here, Miss Edie. I know there's so much to cover. We might have to have you back on to really go even
love
deeper here.
to.
But I just want to
Round
say
two.
thank you. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to my heart from yours for being here today with us, for just adding so much value. You've lived an incredible life, and I'm excited to continue to see where it goes, and obviously stay in touch. So thank you so much for being here
Thank
on the
you so
show.
much. It was a pleasure to see you again, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely.